Good morning, students. So today we will discuss section C of your CBSE sample paper. Now here we have to discuss question number 23, and question number 23 says read the source given below and answer the question that follows. So source is given from your history portion, chapter 1, Rise of Nationalism in Europe. So let's read the source, and on the basis of that source you have to answer the question that follows. So following the defeat of Napoleon, so it is from the New Conservatism after 1815. So following the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, the European governments were driven by the spirit of conservatism. So students, the Napoleon, he was defeated in 1815 by all the together by all the European powers. So now the European governments which came to be established after 1815, they were driven by the spirit of conservatism. Now what is conservatism? Means that political philosophy that stressed the importance of tradition, which lay more importance on the tradition, established institutions, customs, and preferred gradual development to quick change. Means okay, they want change, but it should be very slow. So basically conservatives were the supporters of the monarchy, and they want to preserve, they want to respect the traditional institutions like church, like this joint family system. So these kind of institution they want to preserve, and they want that okay, change should be there, but it should be very slow, gradual change should be there, not the quick change. Now, conservatives believe that established and traditional institutions of state and society like monarchy, church, social hierarchies, property, family should be preserved. So this they wanted. So these conservatives, or this conservatism ideology, this supported this, that traditional institutions should be preserved. Most conservatives, however, did not propose to a return to the society of pre-revolutionary days. So, no conservative now, because after 1804, when the civil code was introduced by the Napoleon, so many changes were introduced, administrative changes. So now, no conservatives, they don't want to go into pre-revolutionary days when there was no change. So now everybody liked the change, whatever changes were brought by the Napoleon. So no one now wants to go back to the pre-revolutionary days where the absolute monarchy was there and no change was there. Rather, they realized from the changes initiated by the Napoleon, as I told you, Civil Code of 1804, that modernization could in fact strengthen traditional institutions like monarchy. That we can also strengthen monarchy by introducing certain reforms. It could make state power more effective and strong. So through certain reforms as introduced by Napoleon, they can reform the monarchy also, they can make the state power more effective. Some measures can be taken to make it more strong. Modern army can be built, efficient bureaucratic system can also be developed, dynamic economy, and they can abolish feudalism also, serfdom also, the bonded labor. So if we can go for these kind of things, according to them, it can strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. So in 1815, the year when Napoleon was defeated, the representatives of the European power which defeated Napoleon together, Britain, Russia, Persia, Austria, they collectively defeated Napoleon. They met at Vienna, so to draw up a settlement for Europe. So after the defeat, for some sort of settlement, they met at Vienna in 1815. The Congress was hosted by Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. So he was Austrian Chancellor. So he was the host of the meeting. So the delegates drew up the Treaty of Vienna of 1815. So Treaty of Vienna was signed in 1815 with the object of undoing the changes, most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. So the main objective of this treaty was to undo the changes that have come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. So now the features of Treaty of Vienna, the Bourbon dynasty, which had been disposed during the French Revolution, was restored to power. Means again the Bourbon kings now they came in France, and France lost the territories it has annexed under the Napoleon. A series of states were set up on the boundaries of France to prevent the French expansion in future. So, in this way, you have to read the source, and now you have to answer the following questions. So now we have to answer the questions on the basis of the source which we have read of question number 23. So first question is, which of the following statement correctly describes about European conservative ideology? So here the three options are given: preservation of beliefs introduced by Napoleon, preservation of two sects of Christianity, and preservation of socialist ideology in economic sphere. And the other one option is on the other page, that is the preservation of traditionalist beliefs in state and society. So here the answer is the other option, that is D, the preservation of traditional beliefs in state and society. Now the second question related to question number 23 means the second option now, 23.2, identify the purpose to convene or to call the Vienna of Congress in 1815 from the following option. So four options are given and now we have to select the correct one. First is to declare the competition of German unification. Second, to restore conservative regime in Europe. C, to declare war against France. D, to start the process of Italian unification. So here the most appropriate option is B, to restore conservative regime in Europe, because the main motive of Vienna Congress is to establish again the conservative monarchies in Europe. Now the third part, or the third question of 23rd question 23.3 is, what did conservatives focus on at Congress of Vienna? So the options: A, to re-establish peace and stability in Europe. B, to establish socialism in Europe. C, to introduce democracy in France. And D, to set up a new parliament in Austria. So here A, the answer is A, to re-establish peace and stability in Europe. So this was the main focus of the conservatives. Now the fourth part, 23.4, how did the Congress of Vienna ensure peace in Europe? So appropriate option we have to select. So how they will ensure peace in Europe? With the restoration of Bourbon dynasty. B, Austria was not given the control of northern Italy. C, laying out a balance of power between all the great powers in Europe. And D, by giving power to German Confederation. So here the appropriate option is C, students. So that balance of power should be laid down between all the great powers in Europe. The balance should be maintained, then only peace can be ensured in Europe. Now question number 24, now we have to see. So this is from manufacturing, chapter 6, geography. So manufacturing industries not only help in modernizing agriculture, which forms the backbone of our economy, they also reduce the heavy dependence of people on agriculture income by providing them jobs in secondary and tertiary sector. So this shows the importance of manufacturing industry in the economy. So manufacturing industries not only modernize agriculture, but they forms the backbone of our economy. They reduce the heavy dependence of people on agriculture by providing them jobs in the secondary and the tertiary sector. So industrial development is a prerequisite or precondition for eradication, for removal of unemployment and poverty from our country. More infrastructure development we will have, more economic growth will be there, more economic development will be there. So less unemployment will be there. If less unemployment will be there, less poverty will be there. So we have to set up more and more industries in order to fight these evils which are prevalent in our country, that is poverty and unemployment. So this is the main philosophy behind public sector industries and joint sector ventures in India. So that's why a lot of public sector industries and joint ventures were being set up to provide employment to the people. It was also aimed at bringing down regional disparities by establishing industries in tribal and backward area. Now you see, if we see our country, then regional imbalance is there. Some states are prosperous state, more development is there, but some states are lacking behind. So so to remove regional imbalance, we have to give focus to more of the backward areas by establishing industries in the tribal and backward areas. So the export of manufactured goods expand trade and commerce. So more and more export we will do, more and more trade and commerce will expand, and more foreign exchange we will earn. So countries that transform their raw material into a wide variety of finished goods of higher value are prosperous. So rather than selling a raw material directly, we should process that raw material into a finished good, and then only we should sell, so that value should be added and more GDP it will contribute to the economy, so that we can become more prosperous. So India's prosperity lies in increasing and diversifying its manufacturing industry. So we can also be prosperous. We have to diversify, we have to expand our manufacturing industries. Agriculture and industry, they are not exclusive of each other, they are not separated of each other, they move hand in hand. Like agro industries in India, they have given major boost to agriculture by raising its productivity. So agro industries, which the whose raw material is agriculture based, so like cotton, textile, sugar, so these are agro based industries, and this has given major boost to agriculture. Now, the questions we have to answer on the basis of the following, the whatever source we have read, following questions we have to now answer. So, first is 24.1, that is manufacturing industries fall in dash and agriculture in dash. Now they are asking us in which respective sectors these manufacturing industries come. So they fall in secondary sector and agriculture, primary sector. Now, after this 24.2 question number, manufacturing provides job opportunities to reduce dependence on agriculture. Now, identify the sector from the following job, which sector the following jobs belong to. So, we have to identify now. So, jobs created or promoted by manufacturing industry. So, here we have to see whatever jobs are given and then sectors. So, first is garment production, and against that it is written primary. Now moving further, the same question 24.2, the B option is research and development, and against that it is written tertiary. C is banking and it is written secondary against that, and D is mining and it's written quaternary. Now choose the correct option. So B is the answer. Okay students, so B is the answer. So garment production, it will come under secondary, then after that research and development will come under quaternary, then banking will come under tertiary, and mining will come under primary. So in this way you have to match it. Now 24.3, which of the following option does not help in modernizing the agriculture? So A is manufacturing farm input equipments, then providing unskilled labor force, then supplying the fertilizer and pesticides, D producing tube pumps and sprinklers. So does not help in modernizing agriculture, it is B, providing unskilled labor force. Now the question number 24.4, students, in order to attract foreign manufacturing firms, a country needs to develop agriculture facilities, agrarian facilities or cultivable lands, media facilities or infrastructure facilities. So obviously the answer is D, that is infrastructure facilities. So if we want more and more MNCs, more and more foreign direct investment should come into our country, we have to develop our infrastructure. Now we have to see question number 25, students. So this is from your chapter 7 political science, that is outcomes of democracy. So here let's read the extract now, or the source. So in a democracy we are most concerned with ensuring that people will have right to choose their leaders, and people will have control over their leaders or rulers. So whenever possible and necessary, citizens should be able to participate in decision making. So it is not that we should not participate in the decision making. So wherever possible, it is not that we are asking that our decision should be implemented in the strategic decision making related to defense and other things, but wherever possible, because India is a welfare state. So whatever policy making is being done, it is done by the government keeping in mind the needs of the people. So before taking any policy decision, people at least should be consulted. So people should be able to participate in the decision making that affects them all. Therefore, the most basic outcome of democracy should be that it produces a government that is accountable to the citizen and responsive to the needs and expectations of the citizens. So if we have adopted democratic structure, then this is our expectation from that structure, that kind of government should be there that is answerable to the citizen, that is responsive to the needs of the people, and expectations of the citizen should be fulfilled. That kind of policies should be framed by the government which are according to the needs of the people, which are in the interest of the people, because we are a welfare state. Government is there to promote the welfare of the people. So some people think that democracy produces less effective government. So many people think this also. And it is true that non-democratic governments, they are quick in decision making, they are efficient in decision making and implementation. But in democracy, we lack in quick implementation, because lot of discussion we have to go through, lot of consultation we have to do, deliberation, negotiation. So some delay is bound to take place. But because it has to follow certain procedure, its decisions may be both more acceptable to the people and more effective also. So if delay is there, it is good, it is for the betterment of the people, because best decision will come out of the delays. But because it has followed procedure, because proper procedures are being followed, its decisions may be both more acceptable to the people and more effective. So after proper deliberation, after following proper procedure, so decisions will be acceptable to the people, and it will be more effective also. And moreover, when citizen wants to know if decision was taken through correct procedure, they can find this out, because transparency is there, and people have right and means to examine the process of decision making. There is a transparency, but this factor is missing in non-democratic governments. Then there is another aspect in which democratic government is certainly better than its alternative. Democratic government is a legitimate government, it is according to the law. So democratic government may be slow, may be less efficient, not always very responsive or clean, but it's people's own government. Now on the basis of the source, so we have to answer. So 25 point first part, let's see. People's right to choose their own rulers or leaders is called as the dash. So here, right to initiative, right to plebiscite, right to vote, right to referendum. So here answer is right to vote. Now next is students 25.2 part, which of the following options help in promoting transparency in the governance. So it is right to education, right to information, right against exploitation, and right to speech and expression. So obviously the answer is B, right to information. So this only help us in promoting transparency in the governance. Our right to ask, right to information. Then 25.3 dash makes the government legitimate. A, credibility of politicians. B, people's movement. C, free and fair elections. D, holding of power. So here, free and fair elections. So this makes the government legitimate according to the law. 25.4 now the part, decision in a democracy are more acceptable to the people because they are: A option, taken swiftly and implemented quickly. B, taken by giving privileges to the people. C, taken through elites' votes. And D, taken after following due processes. So decisions in democracy are more acceptable because they are taken after following due processes and procedures. That is D option. Now question number 26, students, this is from your economics. Ford Motors, so this is from your globalization chapter 4. So read the source. So let's see. Ford Motors, an American company, is one of the largest automobile manufacturers with production spread over 26 countries of the world. So MNCs they are talking about here, American company. Okay, so you can see 26 countries this company is being operated, or operations are being carried out in 26 countries. Ford Motors came to India in 1995. So this year they launched their operations in India. They spent 1700 crores to set up a large plant near Chennai. So see the additional foreign investment they are bringing with them, 1700 crores. This was done in collaboration with Mahindra and Mahindra. So see the benefits Mahindra and Mahindra will get from the Ford Motors, the additional investment plus the sophisticated technology they will also bring with them. So Mahindra and Mahindra, a major Indian manufacturer of Jeep and trucks, and by the year 2004, Ford Motors was selling 27,000 cars in Indian markets, while 24,000 cars were being exported from India to South Africa, Mexico and Brazil. So here manufacturing is also been done, and then they are exporting also from here. The company wanted to develop Ford India as a component supplying base for its other parts across the globe. So this is from globalization chapter. MNC they are given a case study of Ford Motors. So now let's see the question 26.1. The passage given above relates to following option. So A, increased employment. B, foreign investment. C, foreign collaboration. D, international competition. So obviously B is the right option. Foreign investment we are talking about here. So 26.2, according to the given passage or source, Ford Motors can be termed as MNC, multinational company, based on the following options. A. Production of different types of automobiles. B. Largest automobile manufacturer in the world. C. Because of large scale exports of cars across globe. D. Industrial and commercial ventures across the globe. So why Ford Motors can be called as MNCs? Because the operations are being spread out throughout the world. So industrial and commercial ventures across the globe. So 26.3, now by setting up their production plant in India, Ford Motors wanted to A. Collaborate with leading Indian automobile company. B. Satisfy the demand of America, Africa and Indian markets. C. Tap the benefits of low cost production and large market. And D. Take over small automobile manufacturing units in India. So here C, why Ford Motors, the MNCs will come here to tap the benefits of low cost production, cheap labor here and large market. India is providing them large market also. So now the last question, 26.4. The Ford Motors wish to develop Ford India as a component supplying base for its other plants across the globe is an evidence of A. Promoting local industries of India. B. Merging trade from different countries. C. Supplying jobs to factory workers in India. And D. Interlinking of production across countries. So D is the answer, students. Interlinking of production across the countries. So Ford Motors wish to develop Ford India as a component supplying base so that it can supply the cars to the other parts of the globe. So this is interlinking of production across the country. So somewhere designing is done, somewhere manufacturing is done, somewhere assembling is done. So this is all example of interlinking of production across the countries.